Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we bring urgent breaking updates from Tehran, where Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has delivered a stark and uncompromising warning aimed squarely at the United States. Iran says it will not hesitate to strike U.S. naval forces if provoked. The message has triggered global concern, and military watchers are racing to assess the risks. Major announcements from Khamenei's address underscore his view that U.S. actions in the Persian Gulf and broader Middle East have crossed red lines. He accuses Washington of escalating pressure through naval deployments, sanctions, and intelligence operations. He asserts that further missteps by the U.S. will provoke immediate and forceful retaliation. He repeatedly stresses that Iran will act decisively to defend its sovereignty and dignity. Khamenei portrays U.S. naval presence in the Gulf as a direct threat to regional stability and Iran's security. He claims Iran has developed missile drone and naval assets capable of targeting U.S. ships near critical waterways, such as the Strait of Hormuz. He warns that no vessel is beyond reach if Tehran determines it necessary to respond. This explosive claim comes amid a backdrop of heightened tension. The U.S. recently imposed fresh sanctions on key Iranian sectors, and intelligence reports suggest Iran continues to enrich uranium in defiance of past agreements. The Biden administration has issued cautious statements emphasizing alignment with allies and strong monitoring of the Gulf, but avoiding overt escalation. Defense analysts caution that Khamenei's threat is more than rhetorical. It is a calibrated move intended to showcase strength and deter further U.S. moves. Inside Iran, many view it as a way to unify domestic opinion under growing economic and political pressure. The warning serves both external and internal strategic goals. Global observers are watching closely. Any clash between U.S. naval forces and Iran could rapidly spiral. The region is rife with competing powers and alliances, and one miscalculation could draw in multiple states. Shipping lanes, especially around the Strait of Hormuz, are extremely vulnerable to disruption. A confrontation there could ripple through global energy markets. State media in Iran released imagery of naval drills with missile launches and fast attack boats simulating strikes on mock targets. These exercises are billed as routine defense maneuvers, but their timing sends an unmistakable signal. Iran is showing readiness and capability in parallel with political messaging. Meanwhile, U.S. naval forces maintain a robust presence in Gulf waters. Carrier strike groups, destroyer task forces, and surveillance assets remain on high alert. The proximity of both sides in contested waters amplifies risk. Analysts warn that even a small provocation could escalate rapidly given tight margins for misreading or overreaction. Countries in the region have responded with calls for restraint. Gulf states emphasize trouble with escalation and express desire for diplomacy. The European Union and United Nations have voiced concern, labeling the recent rhetoric dangerous and destabilizing. Their statements urge both sides to step back before conflict becomes inevitable. In Washington, senior officials rushed into closed-door sessions to evaluate military options and diplomatic responses. A Pentagon spokesman reiterated that the U.S. remains committed to protecting its forces and interests, but seeks to avoid confrontation unless absolutely forced. Meanwhile, some members of Congress are pushing for firmer posture and broader sanctions. Khamenei's message also carries domestic weight. Iran faces economic hardship, inflation, protests, and political unrest. By adopting a defiant stance toward the U.S., he appeals to nationalist sentiment and portrays his regime as standing strong in the face of external threats. This helps consolidate internal support at a moment of vulnerability. Security experts warn that the showdown bears echoes of prior brinkmanship in the Gulf. Past episodes of missile fire and covert retaliation nearly led to open war. The window for error is narrow. The complexity of asymmetrical warfare in littoral zones means that lines are blurry. Underperformance by sensors, electronic interference, or miscommunication could trigger unintended escalation. At present, both Iran and the U.S. seem locked in tense deterrence. Neither side is openly seeking war, yet both are unwilling to back down. Khamenei's words make clear that Iran views continued U.S. pressure as intolerable. Washington maintains that it will not be coerced or intimidated. The standoff continues. This is a developing story unfolding across naval deployments, intelligence shifts, diplomatic friction, and regional anxiety. Each hour brings new signals, reinforcements, or recalibrations. The consequences of a misstep are vast, spanning energy markets, trade routes, global alliances, and geopolitical balance. We will continue monitoring the situation minute by minute, bringing you verified updates, expert insight on how this high-stakes confrontation may evolve and what it means for regional and global security. Stay tuned for ongoing coverage as this dangerous standoff between Iran and the United States plays out before the world. The warnings from Tehran are not isolated remarks. They reflect a consistent strategic pattern that Iran has followed for decades. Every time Washington expands its military footprint near Iranian waters, Tehran answers with firm defiance. Khamenei has now elevated this defiance to a direct threat, saying clearly that Iranian missiles and drones can target American warships anywhere in the region. This statement marks a sharp escalation in tone and intent. In his speech, he declared that Iran would no longer tolerate violations of its territorial integrity. He emphasized that the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz are not playgrounds for foreign navies. According to his words, any act that endangers Iranian sovereignty will be met with swift punishment. He also reminded his audience that Iran has tested weapons with longer range and improved precision, making its deterrence more credible. Military experts say that Iran's coastal defense systems, fast boats, submarines, and mobile missile units give it the ability to strike quickly before American ships can respond. This creates an atmosphere of tension where one spark could ignite a serious confrontation. The U.S. Navy's presence is meant to ensure open navigation, but Iran sees it as provocation. Each side claims to act defensively, yet both are preparing for the worst. Inside Iran, the government media outlets hailed Khamenei's declaration as a show of power. They portrayed it as proof that Iran is standing tall against Western pressure. In rallies across the country, supporters chanted slogans praising resistance and condemning sanctions. The tone was defiant and emotional, designed to project unity in the face of what many Iranians view as constant humiliation from the West. Across the region, other nations are uneasy. Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates have significant interests tied to both Washington and Tehran. They rely on stability for oil exports, yet they host American bases that could become targets if war breaks out. The possibility of missile strikes on Gulf infrastructure alarms investors and policymakers alike. European diplomats have tried to restart dialogue, urging Iran and the U.S. to step back from confrontation. The European Union issued statements calling Khamenei's remarks extremely dangerous. They warned that the collapse of diplomacy could lead to another major Middle Eastern conflict. But in Tehran, officials insist that they will not engage in talks under pressure. Oil markets responded swiftly. Prices surged as traders calculated the risk of disruptions in global supply routes. The Strait of Hormuz handles around 20% of the world's petroleum shipments. Any military incident there could send prices soaring and destabilize fragile economies dependent on oil imports. The financial shockwaves would extend far beyond the region. Meanwhile, the U.S. Navy has reportedly adjusted its readiness levels. Ships in the Fifth Fleet have been placed on alert. Surveillance aircraft are conducting continuous patrols over the Gulf to track Iranian movements. The Pentagon released a statement emphasizing deterrence and readiness while downplaying the possibility of immediate war. Still, the tension is unmistakable. Former intelligence officials say that both sides are playing a dangerous game of signaling. Iran wants to show that it cannot be bullied. The United States wants to prove that it will protect its interests. Between those goals lies a narrow corridor of misunderstanding. A misread radar signal, a fast boat maneuver too close to a destroyer, or a missile test mistaken for an attack could all ignite conflict. Khamenei's speech also addressed the Iranian military itself. He praised the Revolutionary Guards for their vigilance and sacrifice. He told them to stay alert and prepare for any confrontation. He called their mission sacred, linking national defense to faith and identity. That message resonates deeply inside Iran, where the Guards are both a military and political force. Observers note that Iran's rhetoric has grown sharper since new rounds of sanctions took effect. The Iranian economy is under strain with inflation high and currency value falling. Analysts believe the government uses threats against the U.S. to distract from domestic frustration. It creates an external enemy to unify citizens behind the leadership. In Washington, officials are divided on how to respond. Some call for strong deterrence and visible naval power. Others warn that military posturing only increases the risk of miscalculation. The administration has reiterated that diplomacy remains open, but that the safety of American personnel is non-negotiable. Reports from the region indicate that both Iran and U.S. allies are reinforcing air defense systems. Satellite imagery shows new missile batteries being positioned along the Iranian coast. In Bahrain and Qatar, American forces have been conducting exercises to test rapid response capability. Each movement adds another layer of tension to an already volatile landscape. The global community remains on edge. The United Nations Secretary General has urged restraint, reminding both sides that even a short conflict could devastate civilian populations and global trade. Humanitarian agencies are quietly preparing for contingencies in case hostilities begin. Khamenei's message also included criticism of Israel, accusing it of pushing the United States toward confrontation. He claimed that Israeli intelligence operations have influenced American policy in the region. He said Iran will not hesitate to retaliate against Israeli targets if attacked. That statement broadened the scope of the threat, adding new complexity to regional dynamics. Energy experts predict that if conflict erupts, insurance rates for shipping through the Gulf will skyrocket. Cargo carriers may reroute through longer and costlier paths. The impact would be global, affecting industries from aviation to agriculture. Strategists in Washington believe Khamenei's ultimate goal is deterrence. By threatening the U.S. Navy, he seeks to force recognition of Iran's regional power. Yet the risk is that such threats can be misread as intentions rather than warnings. That is what makes the situation so dangerous. Across social media platforms, discussions of the speech dominate trends. Analysts, journalists, and citizens alike debate whether this marks the start of a new crisis. Hashtags related to Iran and the U.S. Navy have surged as the public tries to interpret the meaning behind the leader's warning. The global audience is watching every movement. In Tehran, officials insist that Iran does not seek war, but will respond if attacked. They repeat the phrase dignity and defense to frame their position as moral rather than aggressive. However, military observers caution that such statements often precede escalation. Regional security councils are meeting in emergency sessions. The Gulf Cooperation Council has urged both nations to prioritize diplomacy, yet trust is in short supply. Years of sanctions, covert operations, and political blame have eroded communication. Each side expects the worst from the other. Amid this standoff, economic pain inside Iran continues. Citizens face shortages of essential goods and rising prices. For many Iranians, the confrontation with the U.S. feels both patriotic and exhausting. They are proud of resistance, yet wary of the cost. In the United States, the public response is mixed. Some view Iran's threats as bluster. Others worry that a regional misstep could drag the U.S. into another endless conflict. Foreign policy experts debate whether deterrence or diplomacy offers a safer path. Khamenei's insistence on striking if provoked is being analyzed by intelligence agencies for signs of intent. They are studying troop movements, communication intercepts, and radar patterns for evidence of preparation. Early reports suggest Iran has mobilized certain coastal units, but no large-scale deployments have been confirmed. As of now, the situation remains at high alert. War has not begun, but peace feels distant. Each side continues to test the boundaries of power and patience. Every hour brings new statements and counterstatements, new satellite images, new speculation. The line between rhetoric and action grows thinner. The message to the world is clear. The Persian Gulf stands at the edge of a potential flashpoint. The stakes extend beyond Iran and the U.S. They touch global trade, energy security, and political stability across continents. The next decisions by leaders in both capitals will determine whether the region steps back from the brink or plunges into conflict. More updates will follow as the situation unfolds. Stay alert for further verified information and analysis as this critical story continues to develop around the clock.